Ranking Minecraft trees by how easily you can chop them, starting with the easiest, which is the birch tree. This is about as straightforward as it gets because all you have to do is just chop the bottom two logs, stand where they were, look up, and hold left click, and you're done. Now the second easiest is the small oak tree, because it has the exact same generation as the birch tree, but this one places slightly lower because sometimes the leaves will actually generate at height level, so you actually have to break them before you can actually cut the tree, which makes it take a slightly longer. The third easiest is the azalea tree. Now this one does generate the logs differently, however, but the pattern is still very easy to understand. It's still very easy to understand how they generate and shouldn't really give you any issue. Next is the jungle tree, the small jungle tree. And you might wonder why this one ranks lower, because it looks to be the exact same as the oak and birch trees. So let's try. And there's the problem. It's too tall, which means you have to pillar up and actually manually break all these logs. Next is the spruce tree. And this one is this one's quite kind of the same as the jungle tree. However, and sometimes the leaves will generate at too far down, which means you have to break them before you can actually go to breaking the tree, and then even then you have to pillar up to actually break the last log. The acacia tree is in the similar boat to those the acacia tree is in the same boat as the previous two, where it's sometimes too high, but this time it's different because the acacia tree is in the same boat as the previous two, where it sometimes generates too high for you to actually reach the top logs. But this time it's different because it splits off into two different branches, and in specific cases like this one, the leaves can actually obstruct your view of the higher branches. And you still gotta pillar up for them. So yeah. The cherry tree is kind of similar to the acacia tree, where it also branches out, but this time the leaves are much thicker, meaning it's a lot easier to miss logs. But the pattern is still easy to understand. It's still easy to understand how they generate, and it shouldn't give you too much trouble when you're trying to cut them. Next are the pale oak and dark oak trees. They're the first trees to be 2x2s instead of 1x1s, so they have a lot more wood, and they'll just take a lot more time to cut. Cutting them is actually pretty straightforward, but it just takes so long. That's why they rank this low. Now the jungle tree is basically those, but just way taller. And you might actually wonder why I rank this above the large spruce tree. And because it has those branches where there's extra logs that you might miss. But it makes up for this by having vines, and you can climb up these vines to get to the top of the tree, and you can just get an easier. You just start, instead of starting at the bottom, you'll be able to start at the top, which will make it much faster to chop than the large spruce tree. And those branches, they're nothing too special. It's pretty easy to know where all the logs are. It shouldn't give you any trouble, but definitely something to look out for. Now the large spruce tree is pretty much exactly the same height as it. Maybe it's a little shorter, but Right, but it doesn't have any vines, so you kind of just have to staircase your way up. And since you have to start at the bottom instead of the top, it takes them a lot longer. I guess one nice thing about these 2x2 trees is that you don't have to pillar up because they're wide enough so you can just staircase up. So I guess that's nice about them. Okay, so now we've reached the trees where if you had to cut these, I would genuinely feel bad for you because they just suck to cut. Starting with the large oak tree. Now, to start, it's already way too tall for you to just mine, so you already have to pillar up. But it has so many branches of oak logs that just branch out that you have to deal with. And if you miss one, you have to just go all the way back up and break it because the leaves won't decay. And that's kind of similar to like the azalea and cherry trees, like they also have branches. But the issue with this one is that like they don't have a set pattern. Like it's not easy to understand how they generate. Like there could just be an oak log like in the middle of nowhere, just completely disconnected from any of the branches, and you have no way of knowing until you realize that like there's just the leaves aren't decaying. And like this is where it goes from like chopping the trees to finding the logs. And that's why this one is so difficult to cut. Now, the mangrove tree is basically just this, but, like, way worse. Like, it's oh God. It hurts just to look at this. Well, for one, to start, like, there's all these mangrove roots that won't decay. And the actual tree parts, it's even worse than the oak tree. It starts normal, but then it just devolves into this just game of just searching through all the leaves, trying to find every single log. And it's just like, and yeah, there are vines on this one. The problem is like they don't help because now the issue is finding the logs instead of mining them. The logs just generate so unpredictably. There's no way to like know where they spawn. You just kind of have to like break leaves everywhere and search for until you get to every last one. Like and you just don't know, like I don't even know, bro. And then once you're done chopping all the logs, which by the way, I only got 19 logs from that. Like that is just not worth the trouble. And once you're done that, you also have to break all of these mangrove roots because they don't decay. If you're wondering about these smaller mangrove trees, also if you're wondering like about these smaller mangrove trees like this one, why am I? Anyway, so if you're wondering about these smaller mangrove trees like this one. Anyway, so if you're wondering about the smaller mangrove trees like this one, I'd still rank it just as low because, like, you're still going through a ton of effort for, like, what, 4 or 5 logs? Like, that's just not worth it at all. Now, the mangrove is bad, but there are 2 trees that are somehow even worse. And they're the nether trees. Warped and crimson. Bro, where do I even begin with these? They're too tall, but that barely even matters because the leaves, all those warped blocks, those warped warp blocks, they don't decay. Which means you have to break them manually. And, like, that just makes these such a pain to deal with. Now you might say, oh, but like you could just like use a hoe and instantly break these. Like, yeah, that is true. The problem is that this just doesn't solve the problem at all. Like, you still have to manually break every single one. And like, even with that, it doesn't feel as bad as the mango trees. Like, the mango trees, you gotta search through you just gotta search through all of the leaves for just an extra log. And that doesn't seem as bad, and this doesn't seem as bad as it when you can break them instantly when you can break these war blocks instantly with the hoe. And that would be the case if it wasn't for one thing. The flint and steel. If you don't want to spend 30 seconds searching through a mango tree, searching for a piece of a log that doesn't exist, you don't have to. You can just burn it. And the whole thing will just disappear in like a minute or two. You can't burn nether trees. I'm clicking right now. Ow. They don't burn because they're in the nether. And that just automatically makes them the worst trees. Also, if you're wondering which one of these I'd actually consider worse, I consider the warped trees to be the worst one. Because the crimson trees have these vines that you can climb up, and like you can kind of like avoid the problem of digging up, having to pillar up for them. That makes like almost no difference, but like I guess it technically means that the crimson trees are slightly better than the warped trees. But, yeah, those were every tree in Minecraft, ranked by how easily you can chop them. If you enjoyed this video and watched all the way to the end, thank you and goodbye.